Hi everybody, my name is Brenda. My channel is Handwork Maniac. Today I'm going to show I have several finishes. I'm going to show all of my current cross stitch projects and the haul that I didn't get to last time because we only got through half of it in the last video, and I think I got a little more since then. Just a couple things. And then at the very end of the video I will put some footage of my wee village garden flower bed that's outside. We finally finished the water feature, so it is working. We're so excited about that. So it is finally completely finished since the new addition on the house, but I'll put that at the very end of the video in case you're not interested in watching that. All right, let's get straight to the finishes. It's been, gosh, almost a month since I made a video, so I have lots of stuff to show you. First off, I spent the last several days, I'm off for my summer break. I work at a public school and I have 7 weeks off in the summer. So last week was the beginning of my summer break from work. So I was in the mood to, just do some big projects that have been waiting for a long time. And one of them was that my sewing room needed to be reorganized and cleaned up and decluttered so that it was nicer looking to me, a nicer place to spend my time, and so that I could find everything that I was looking for. And I wanted to get some of my cross stitch up on the walls where I could enjoy it and see it. I love Pam and Steph on Just Keep Stitching. I love that they have their seasonal wall up behind them on every video where you can see some of their finishes. And they change that out seasonally. And I love that idea. You guys are fabulous. I love seeing your work. So that gave me the idea that put some of mine up on the wall after I cleaned out and made some space for it in here. There's a lot of things that are still waiting to be framed, and I decided I wasn't going to wait for them to be framed anymore to enjoy them, so they are just pinned or tacked to the wall where I can enjoy them. This one is waiting for some Belle pull hardware, and I have another one over here you can't see that's waiting for Belle pull hardware that I ordered. So I will finish those. Those would not be hard to put that on. But I figured why not tack it up while I'm waiting and enjoy it. My husband is working on a bulletin board idea for this wall so that I could easily just tack up the recent finishes where I could see them, easily take things up and down for seasons while I'm waiting for things to be framed, and could also hang the framed stuff up there as well. And then I was able to reorganize all of my cross stitch stuff where it's easily accessible and where I can find it on this bottom half of these shelves. So that was a lot of work, but a lot of fun. And now all I want to do is spend my time in this room and not do anything else, which is not good. Okay, let's go with this finish first. I finished Abecedere Berthe Dupont 1913. I've been working on this for 10 years. It shouldn't have taken 10 years, and it's had a lot of problems. Catherine and I have had to work through several things on this chart over the years. First off, after I had done about this much of this border, I realized it's not my favorite thing. So Catherine took it home 2 different years for my Mother's Day and my birthday, which are close together, and she finished the entire border for me. So this entire border was stitched by my daughter Catherine. She left a little bit over here for me to do at the very end. And I am so grateful that she did that, because I for some reason did not enjoy this border. I don't enjoy repetitive stitching the same thing over again. I don't mind if it's just a simple border, but when it's a really complicated border that just keeps repeating itself over, it's like doing a project 10 times in a row, and I don't do well stitching the same project twice, let alone 50 times. So that was fabulous. The pattern was free at the time I got it 10 years ago. It was offered for free very shortly on a chat board that I was on by the designer. And it came in parts in French, and my computer printer driver at the time didn't translate the files very well. So some of the files printed with some symbols, and some of the files, different pages printed with some symbols, and part of the pattern printed with the different symbols that didn't match up. And I had to go back through the files and try and figure out what was going on with those, what I had done 10 years ago. I was lucky to find the files on my computer still when I finally got to those portions of the pattern and realized what had happened. I've changed the called for colors are, I have them right here. I changed several of the called for colors. These are the greens that were called for. So all the leaves in greenery would have been these two colors, 371 and 831. It's a very olivey brown green. And I changed mine to 470 and 471, these greens. And then realized 2 years into it, when I ran out of floss and went to buy more, that they were some very old skeins of floss that I had started with, and the new ones are not the same color anymore. DMC's changed several of their colors over the years partly because they couldn't source the same raw ingredients that they used to be able to. Several reasons DMC has had to change their dye lot slightly over the years. So you guys were great, my viewers. I put a call out on my video and had several people, so many of you, sent me your old floss so that we could use it, and we had plenty to finish the project. Thank you so much. So that was one of the other things we ran into. I also changed the two browns that were called for, tan brown colors, were 644 and 3790. Those two colors. And I changed mine to 841 and 839 because I just thought those two colors looked better with the greens and everything that I had chosen. And then it calls for two yellows or golds in the pattern, 782 and 729. But this huge flower right here, this big yellow flower right here, was charted to be that really light tan color, this one. And I wanted it to be a different color. So I added a lighter yellow, 676, to the pattern that was not called for. And the only time I used it was when the flowers were supposed to be that light tan color. Down here somewhere, oh, this flower right here was also supposed to be that light tan color, so I used 676 there on both sides. And those are the only two places. Everywhere else where it called for that light tan, like in this house, in these birds, I used the light tan. So those were the only, those are the only changes that I made. Otherwise it's as charted. On 32 count white or off-white, I'm not sure, even weave. I didn't write it down 10 years ago. I know it's even weave and I know it's 32 count. So glad to have this finished. So gorgeous. It was a fun, fun piece. 2 strands of floss using all DMC. Oh, that, I believe the designer's name is Marie Francois. There's a link in the description box below. It is still currently available. You can still buy the pattern in France on a French website. I have the link there below. You may be able to buy it in other places as well. I just know that in that one place for sure you can still purchase the pattern. And then one of my mania starts, that was one of the ones that I assigned to a particular month of the year because it's seasonal, was Sunshine. It is by the Bay Needle Arts, called Sunshine. Was very generously gifted. This pattern was gifted to me, passed on to me after she was done with it by Glow, my good friend Glow, because she knew Catherine loves sunflowers. So I stitched it. Catherine stitched a little bit on it. I finished it this month. It was June's assignment, seasonal piece for June from my Mania Starts. In May, I used the called for DMC. This is 28 count natural light linen, and I did use 3 strands of DMC to stitch it. And it does have this brown edge right around here is French knots. It's stitched underneath and then there's French knots on top. And I'm going to make this into a pillow for Catherine to have. It does, you can see on the pattern that you can put a charm right here. So I'm trying to decide if I want to do that or not, and what I want the charm to say, because you can get charms that are near that size with lots of different sayings on them. So I'm still deciding. So that was a finish. Excited about that. And then I did some fully finishing. These were the 2 freebies I did for the COVID-19. This one is by Blue Flower, Let Joy Be Unconfined, the Blue Flower, and this one is Let's Stay Home by Satsuma Street. And I showed you the finishes before, but then I actually made them into pillows. Amazingly enough, I actually got some fully finishing done. Love the way they turned out. I just think they're darling. I love having them out in my sewing room. And then this was a pattern I started at StitchCon last summer. It's by, oh gosh, I'm pretty sure it's Hands On Designs. And it's now I can't remember what it's called. I'll put it in the description box below. I converted it. I did not use the called for threads. I converted it to sulky threads because I wanted to try sulky threads. So, but I'll put all that in the description box below what I used. But I fully finished it. When it was done, I love these pillows that have the button right through the middle of them, and I thought that would be fun on this one, so that's what I did for this one. So it is finished. And once I knew I wanted to make a place where I could display a lot of my seasonal stitching for that season so I could enjoy it. And I told you that I wanted to do this bowl that was my great grandmother's. I wrote it on the bottom so I wouldn't forget. She used to make dough in it, so it's actually a dough bowl. So I thought it would be fun to put some pillows in it, and it usually sits right there on that shelf. This was a gift long ago from my good friend Robin, sent that to me. I believe it's a Little House Needleworks design. And then my daughter Catherine, I've been doing the Secret Garden book club, stitching book club with Sapphire Mountain Handcrafts. And she also has this design available you can purchase that says Stitching Book Club. And I was telling Catherine I'd love to have that on a project bag, but I just don't have time to stitch it right now. I have way too many starts. So for my birthday and Mother's Day this year, she stitched that for me. It's on 28 count Ada, I believe. And then I purchased this bag on Amazon, and just all I did was sew the buttons through it to the front of the bag to attach it. But I'm very excited to have that on that bag and another fully finished object. I think that's all my finishes. Let's look at my current cross-stitch projects. First, let's just do this first. I'm going to talk about Pattern Keeper for a minute. This is my full coverage Heaven and Earth Designs, a stitching shelf. You've seen it, you know it. This is where I am. I didn't work on this at all in May, but I did get a few more squares done in June. We're in this window with the hot air balloons outside. So that was fun to work on. My daughter Catherine and I, other daughter Marie, bossy daughter, and I have been both working on, and our friend Kim, on a Heaven and Earth design, mini design of Four Seasons, the mini version of Four Seasons. And so Marie was interested in Pattern Keeper, the app that a lot of people are using for full coverage designs. And I keep hearing about it on Flosstube and was very interested, but realized that I wasn't going to try it because I thought, well, I don't have an Android device. They're working on it for Apple devices, but that's still in development. I didn't have an easily accessible Android device at the moment. I don't like to do cross-country on a full coverage design. I really like doing it in the 10 by 10 blocks. That just makes my brain happy. There's no right way to do it. That's just the way that I prefer. And Pattern Keeper is fabulous if you like cross country. But I thought, well, I don't stitch cross country. I just stitch in little 10 by 10 blocks. So really, I don't need it for that. And I like having my pattern, as I've told you before, attached with a magnet right next to where I'm stitching a paper pattern. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I was working from a tablet. So I thought, oh, it sounds lovely, but I don't need to look into that right now. Well, Marie was really interested. So she got it and was using it to work on Four Seasons. And she showed it to me. And then I was like, oh, this is really nice. I really like this. So my husband got involved and was able to find me an Android device that would work. Oh, I forgot to check. It's not in the videos. I'll have to move the camera just a minute. And I downloaded the app. Heaven and Earth Designs almost always import right into it, no problem. They have a list. If you search the website for Pattern Keeper, he actually has and they have a board on Trello, a Trello board where there's lots of discussion between stitchers and the developer. But there's a list of all of the companies where most of their designs will import right in, a current running list. They keep adding more. Anyway, used it, love it. Now I use it for both of my Heaven and Earth designs that I have. Use it every day. It's just fabulous. For me, the game changer was, well, okay, so I told you I like having the paper pattern magneted right next to me. That was one of my big things, is that I don't want to stitch from a tablet because then I have to look over here. Well, my husband said, well, that's easy to fix. Let's just get you. You can't see it. It's blending into the, hang on. Let me grab it. He said, you just buy a floor stand for it. So he found me a floor stand with a bendable gooseneck that holds the tablet. And it has a triangle base. So I can slide it under the furniture. So it sits, I can move it around so that it's right next to, so I can just reach right over. It's up here. I can make it so it's almost right next to my stitching and touch the screen. So that solved that problem. And the game changer for me was that you can highlight a symbol. Even though I'm now have started doing 2 blocks at a time, stitching 2 blocks at the same time. And I like to start at the bottom of the, we're not going to get into all that. I've already talked to you about Heaven and Earth Designs. Anyway, and how I do them. I think that was 2 or 3 videos ago. You can just tap on a symbol and it will highlight all of the stitches in that symbol. Just with a tap. They all show up. And it is so easy to stitch when the ones you're stitching are highlighted in a different color. It's just easy to your brain to map where the next stitch goes. And then when you're done stitching those 2 squares, I just use either my finger or the squishy end of the stylus, and you just swipe over all the ones that you stitched, and it will only select highlighted stitches. It won't select all the other ones that you're not working on. Just of those highlighted stitches, you can just swipe over that. It marks those, and then you click OK, and it marks those as stitched and turns them the color that they're actually stitched in. So what you're seeing on the screen is exactly what you're seeing on your fabric, which is great for mapping in your brain. You know, oh, I need to do a stitch that's 2 away from these 3 blue that are right next to each other, and you can see that on those 3 blue on the screen, and you can see those 3 blue on your pattern. So talk about not having to think hard at all. It just really helped me stitch faster with less mistakes of putting things in the wrong place. I was checking to see if I covered everything. And then if there's an orphan, I call them orphan stitches. I'm using 832, say, in these 2 squares. And I noticed that because it highlights all the 832 symbols in the entire chart. So I've got it blown clear up so I can only see a few squares around where I'm stitching, usually 2 or 3. But if I notice there's an 832 stitch in the block next to it and it's the only one over there, or there's just like 2 right there in the block next, and there's no other 832 around that, I can just hop over and do those little 2 while I've got it on my needle, it's close by, and then go back to what I was doing and park it where I was going to park it. So I love being able to do those little orphan stitches that are here and there. They're close by, they're not in the square that you're stitching on right now, but if you could just do them, if you knew that they were there, you'd go ahead and do them while you have the thread on the needle, so that when you get to that part, you don't have to pull that color out, start a new thread for that. If you do a lot of Heaven and Earth designs, that will make sense to you. If you don't do full coverage, then, and that didn't make sense to you, then don't worry about it. So I loved that. And then I also love that I can easily see where the next symbol is that I'm going, where the thread is going to be used next to park the thread. It is so easy to see where to park it next. I used to just sit there and scan that block and scan that block. Okay, where's the topmost of that symbol? Top right, because that's where I always park. And you're scanning and you're scanning and you park it, and then a few minutes later you realize, oh, there was another one above that. Don't do that anymore. And then it also highlights, when it highlights a symbol, your color chart on the right hand side, it also highlights what color that number that is. So let's say I'm going to do the percent signs next. I click on the percent signs. There's not a parked thread already there, so now I'm going to have to start a new thread. I click on it. Heaven and Earth Designs have 80 colors. So then you've got your legend, my paper legend that I made that I showed you, and I'm scanning through 3 columns of that. Where's the percent sign? Where's the percent sign? What color is that? And I swear, I'll go through the whole list. No percent sign. Okay, it's got to be on there somewhere. So I'll go through the whole list again. No percent sign. Where is it? So that I'm going through one at a time. Okay, not a percent, not a percent. Not, of course, depending on how tired I am, it may take me 3 times to the list to find the percent sign. But on Pattern Keeper, as soon as you click on those percent signs, it also highlights that color in the color list and tells you it's 810 or whatever it is. So really, I really love, my brain loves that all that information is right there for me to see at a glance, and I don't have to look for it anymore. Anyway, so that, using Pattern Keeper now on my Heaven and Earth designs, and just love it. I'm doing the stitching shelf is the one I just showed you, 1/1 with the called for DMC on 25 count white even weave. And then the 4 Seasons, the mini version, not the full version, the mini version. It will look like this when it is finished. It's the mini version, so it'll be a little more pixelated than the large normal version. I am working up here in this corner here. And this is how far I am. This is the tub. Finally ran into an object, a recognizable object that's not just flowers and stuff. This is the edge of the tub that's sitting out in front of that little gazebo. So that's been fun to work on. Also the called for DMC, also I have an Earth design, 1/1 on 25 count even weave. And then the other full coverage design I have is Disneyland, which I also did not work on in May during Mania, but I have worked on it a little bit since then. I usually work on this one on Saturdays. This one was a PDF chart I purchased on Etsy by Neni Design, N-E-N-I. It's just called Disneyland. It does not import into Pattern Keeper at this time, but that is okay. This one is not nearly as complicated as my Heaven and Earth design ones. This one only has like 50 colors, and it has a lot more blocks of fewer colors in a block, not so much confetti. And I worked over here on, this is where the submarine lagoon is, next to the Matterhorn, starting on the submarine lagoon, the mermaid lagoon where the submarines are. That one's been fun to work on. This is on 40 count dwarf by Picture This Plus, 1 strand over 2 fabric threads. I do use a highlighter when I'm using a paper pattern. This pattern printed in, I printed this, the pattern is in color, and I believe there's also a black and white version. Now I can't remember. But I liked the color version, so I printed it in color, which sometimes makes it a little bit harder to highlight, but it's working so far. All right. Another one of my mania starts was Serenity Harbor by the Bay Needle Art. Needle Art, yes. It comes in 12. It was a 12-part series to begin to originally. So you have to buy all 12 parts to do the whole thing. I bought mine on her Etsy store as PDF charts. I am still up here in the sky. There's a sun. It's hard to see, but there's a sun and clouds and some birds, and I'm just barely starting on this tree. This has been a really fun summer piece. It makes me feel very summery. It's on 40 count. Legacy. Gosh, it'll be in the description box below. It's Legacy Linens 40 count. I just can't remember the name of it right now. I need to write it right there on my pattern so I can tell you when I show it. Loving these roses, the colors of these roses. Just barely put 4 stitches into the top of the first tree. I am using the called for DMC except for where there's big blocks of color. All of this water is just 2 colors of DMC. There's no shading or anything. It's just this lighter color and then this darker color as you get closer to the shore. So I'm going to use some over-dyed silk, some Dinky dyes silk for the water. And then at all the places where there's just these large blocks of one color of green, it's mostly just all the green colors, I'll just pull out my stash and choose an over-dyed, either a cotton or a silk, whichever one I have that's closer to the color that I want. Otherwise, I will use the called for DMC colors. Love this chart. It's so pretty. So fun to work on this time of year. My sister-in-law, Juliana, who's married to my brother, Walter. He's my youngest brother, Walter. I have an older brother and a younger brother. My older brother's named Roger. They gave me Positivity Rules, the PDF, signed me up for Positivity Rules Stitch Along, and purchased a separate copy of it for me as well as for them, so I could participate, so we could stitch it together. This is 40 count blush linen. This was part 1. That was for June. I stitched with the called for DMC. And it is a mystery stitch along, so we don't know what the rest of it will look like. Although there is a kind of a teaser preview, so it will be a house, the shape of a house. And that is by Caterpillar Cross Stitch. She has a website. I started Huckleberry Farm in May, I believe. And I've showed you that before. It is by the Blue Flower. It will look like this when it is finished. Mine is on 40 count Silkweaver Elegance that I ran through the washer a couple of times to lighten it up a little bit. But I can't, that's a very risky thing to do. You never know what it's gonna look like if you do that, because hand-dyed fabric is usually not color fast. So I'm just telling you, if you do it, it's a risk. But I loved how mine turned out. And this is what it looks like so far. stitching this with my friend Lonnie, who was very generously gifted me the pattern. Thank you, Lonnie. I'm enjoying working on that. Oh, these bags. Rats. Where's the other one? Abacadere Berthier Dupont. I had in an Alvin bag that looked just like this for a long time, all the time that I was stitching on it. And it was, I believe, 12 by 14 or 12 by 16, the bag that I've had forever. I've just had the one bag by Alvin. I loved it because it has the little zipper pocket in the front. And it's the mesh bag, plastic mesh bags. And it has handles. So I loved it. And then my daughter Marie, bossy daughter, came over one day and had this bag, which is almost exactly the same, only it's 13 by 13, which means that an 11 by 11 inch Q-snap fits in it much with the 12 by 16 or 12 by 14, whatever it was. I had to make sure there was nothing in the bottom. The Q-snap had to be right down to the bottom, and then that zipper would barely zip across the top. But with this 13 by 13, you can see that there's room to spare up here on both sides for an 11 by 11 Q-snap with the project on it, with the threads in there and the pattern and everything. So I looked at her and I said, "What is that, and where did you get it?" And on this one, the zipper goes up all the way around to there. On my other one, the zipper is just on the top. The other one's a fabulous bag. I just love the way that the 11 by 11 inch Q-snaps fits in this better. So she gave me a few for my birthday, Mother's Day. She actually sent it to the house with the name of Handwork Maniac because she was teasing me and telling me I was famous because now I was getting mail to Handwork Maniac. She's funny. And then I found Amazon only had one available to purchase, but I found a website that I believe was called cuttingmats.com that had some available to purchase, so I purchased a few on there. So now I own several of them because I love them, and they're fabulous. Cuttingmats.com was 10 something per bag, I believe, and I think Amazon was $13 or $14 per bag. Can't remember. But they were all made by the same company, Alvin, A-L-V-I-N. This is my Secret Garden piece by Sapphire Mountain Handcrafts. We got the last, I believe it's the last section. I think this was only 3 sections stitched along. We just got the last one yesterday, and I just got the bird done of the last section. There's some flowers that got up over this. So it is almost finished, I think. Unless I have that wrong and maybe there's another part, but I think that's the end. Loving this. The colors are so beautiful. I'm using the called for DMC floss, 2 strands, but I'm not using the called for fabric. This is 18 count Aida in the color Barnwood, which I believe was Picture This Plus, I think, but it will be in the description box below. It's part of their book club series. We've been reading the book while we stitch it as well, and then she has some online days where you can participate in an online discussion with book club questions about the book. I haven't done that. I've just been enjoying reading the book. They've done several books so far, and they'll be doing several more books after that. So if you're interested, check them out, Sapphire Mountain Handcraft, and you sign up for it through her Etsy shop. This one I have forgotten to show you for like the last 2 videos. The video ends and I think, oh my word, I forgot that one and the other one. This is Modern Folk Embroidery, their 2020 stitch along, called A Family Patchwork Sampler. It will be in 12 sections. We get 1 section a month, but he did tell us right from the beginning what the whole thing was going to look like. I'm doing mine on 25 count white even weave with Mrs. Sedas Silks, a hank of her silk. Mrs. Sedas, S-E-D-A-S, Mrs., M-I-S-S-U-S. She's in Spain. She hand dyes silk. I am using her colors Supernova, a hank of that for all the orange and yellowy parts. And then that green in the middle is Belle Soie Granny Smith. This was May's section. I haven't started on June's section yet. June's section is out. I just haven't started on it. It's this part right here. But I will have it done by the end of June. That's next on my list. So loving this one. So enjoying working on it. It's a beautiful piece. And then the other one I also keep forgetting to show you is the Linen and Threads 2020 Stitch Along, which is a mystery, so we don't know what each section is going to look like until we get it. But it is only a 9-part, I believe. Oh, I have to take the Q-snap off so you can see it. This is going to be hard to hold. This is what mine looks like so far. I am most of the way through the June section, these two, and then there's a little wreath right here with the year 2020 in it that I have left to go to finish the June section. I'm just using 4 colors of dark blue silk and then this one greenish gray color. I'll have the colors listed in the description box. This stitch along did not have a color, does not have called for colors. It was just do it in whatever color you want to do, I believe. A lot of people are doing it just one color. I decided to use 4 different colors. Thoroughly enjoying this. This has been another just fun one to work on. Love that. The only stressful thing on this one is deciding every month what colors I'm going to use for each motif. Once I make the decision and start stitching, it's fun, but I stress out a little bit as I'm trying to decide what color will look good. This is okay, this is a mess, what this is. This is Lost No More, a Dimensions Gold Collection kit. The artwork is by Greg Olson. And I work on this a little bit every day, although I did not work on it during the month of May. And this is where I am. Sorry, my phone shut off. I think it's out of memory, so I had to go download it and start again. Or, not start again, restart. I was just showing you Lost No More. Really enjoying that. I work on it a little bit every day. It's the kit fabric and the kit floss, exactly according to the directions. And I think the only other WIP I haven't, or work in progress, WIP, that I haven't showed you yet is Peaceable Kingdom. I've been working on this 1/1, this whole square right here is a 1/1 scene. And I got a little bit more done on that. This is by Catherine Theron, and it is a class piece. You can only get the pattern if you take the class from her. Here's a small photo of the whole thing. What do I have written on there? Doctor's appointment apparently got written on that page. what was I going to say? Oh, Catherine Theron teaches lots of classes across the country. She travels, so sometimes you can check her website. She usually posts what her teaching schedule is at least a year out, and sometimes she's teaching somewhere nearby and you can go take one of her classes. I have 4 of her pieces started, that classes I took from her, and 1 piece that I finished from her, but I really like her designs and her classes. She has wonderful classes. Okay, I think that's all the works in progress, or WIPs, so now we will do haul, or things that I have purchased that have to do with cross stitch. I realized that I was out of all of my white, off-white fabric, that I didn't have any. And sometimes you just want to start something right away. So I bought some more. I bought some 40 count white linen, some 40 count alabaster, which is just a slightly blue gray off-white. You can see the difference there. And then some more 25 count even weave, because I end up using that for a lot of things. I'm sure you've all heard about the long dog pattern that she just released called Pandemic. It's a free download, only available for a week, and then after that I believe you will have to purchase it, I assume. She just said it's only available for free for a week. I'm not going to start it right now, but oh, it's pretty. I may start it soon, who knows. There's no plans to start it in the immediate next month, unless I change my mind. My friend Kim and my daughter, bossy daughter, Marie, and I have all decided that we needed to start Kringles by Little House Needleworks. It was new at market this year. Such a cute pattern. We're going to start it on July 1st. The called for fabric is 30 count Parisian gray, which I love the color of it, the way it looks on the pattern. But I wanted to do 32 count, so I decided to do Stormy Night, which is a Picture This Plus, I believe. Now I can't remember. 40 count linen. It's very similar to the Parisian gray color. It just has some modeling in it. Might be just slightly darker. And I'll be using the called for colors. Marie, bossy daughter, she is doing, May was not a good month for her to do Mania, and it didn't sound fun to her in May. But in June, she decided that she wanted to do something like that. So this month she's doing Junia, is what she's calling it. And she doesn't have not 20 new starts or anything. She just had 4 or 5 new starts that she was starting, and then she would do work on her WIPs in between. So WIPs for a few days, and then a new start, and then WIPs, according to what was working in her life. But she started, one of her new starts is this one from the recent Cross Stitcher magazine called Sea View. This is just one part of the pattern, and I loved it so much that I had to get it too. It's a like 4-part, 3-part. It's all the parts are in this most recent issue of Cross Stitcher. I just didn't print the page that has the whole chart on it. Sorry, this just shows a portion of it and the floss list. But it is a cute, cute pattern. So I needed to get that one as well. I don't think. Nope, I don't have a picture of the whole thing. But it's by Cheryl McKinnon, which might be Tiny Modernist. Now I'm trying to remember. see, we talked about that already. And in that same Cross Stitcher magazine, there is one called Secret Garden by Emma Congdon that I loved as well. Marie said, Mom, this looks like you. I said, you're right, that has me all over it. So I got the PDF download for that. I bought the Cross Stitcher latest issue magazine digital version, and those two are both in that issue. I ordered some floss, a little bit of floss from Sassy Jack's store, and when they sent my order, I ordered 2 different orders of just a little bit of floss that I needed. She sent this sticker that you could attach to a project, and she sent 2 of them with my floss order. I thought that was very sweet. I ordered Princess Eliana pattern by Mirabilia. I love the colors in that pattern. And I've been admiring Nora Corbett's Little Snowy Village patterns, I think. She has a whole series of them. This is Little Snowy Green Cottage. They have lots of specialty threads and beads in them. I love the whole series, but I'm going to start with this one and see how it goes. Whoa. And I bought some of the specialty threads and beads that it calls for. And I believe this is the called for fabric, which is, oh, does not have a name on it. 32 count sea spray. And I believe that is, this is sea spray. This was all part of the stuff I bought with birthday money that I told you about in my last video, where I ordered just a whole bunch of stuff with some birthday money. Then I got some Mill Hill buttons and beads kits. This one is Gather Together. This one is Fall Oak. This one is Summer Oak. And this one is Winter Oak. The Gather Together comes with perforated paper, and the other 3, all of these oaks, come with Ada to stitch it on. And they are full kits with the floss and beads if it calls for beads. So everything you need to stitch it is in these kits. Running out of space. I ordered this 40 count country mocha linen when I started the Secret Garden. I was trying to decide which color to use, and I went with the barnwood, not this one. So this one will just get added to my stash. I was missing, I have all the Prairie Schooler alphabet patterns, except I was missing JKL and Y and Z. So I ordered those 2. I would like to stitch those all together someday. And then I would also like to stitch the anniversary series from Blackbird Designs. And I had a few of them, but I was missing several. So I purchased Snow Garden, Pink Hill Manor, I skipped one, Valentine Rose, Farmhouse, Swan Lake, Pumpkin Farm, Clara Ellen, I think I'm still missing one, but I also want to stitch those all together in one big piece eventually. Not this year. Sassy Jacks also sent me a corner gauges, one each with my patterns that I ordered. And that is Sassy Jacks Stitchery. And that is it. That is the bottom of the haul box. Thank goodness. All right, so now I will attach some footage of my wee village garden that's out in my flower bed outside. A couple of things I forgot to so if you are only interested in the cross stitch portion of this video, then that part is over and you can turn it off. When I was filming the garden outside, there was two things I forgot to say. First off, I wanted to apologize for my runny nose. I'm apparently allergic to something in the backyard. And then second, the reason there has to be a 60-minute timer to turn it on, because it runs off a solar panel, so it could just run continuously. But we have a timer attached to it. The maximum is 60 minutes on the timer. Is because I think I have some tiny leaks in the system where water is escaping the stream somewhere. So water is getting out of the system. And so eventually the 5-gallon bucket runs out of water. It's also very dry here. We're quite often single digits humidity. So eventually the water would just evaporate out of the stream as it's running, and then the bucket would run out of water because it's only 5 gallons of water. So that's why it has a 60-minute timer. It will run for 60 minutes before it runs out of water. And if the bucket runs out of water, the pump doesn't really like that. When the pump runs out of water, it wouldn't last very long if it ran for very long without water in it. So I hope you enjoy. I'm going to try and find a picture from when I very first started the Wee Village 6 or 8 years ago. I can't even remember how long ago it was. If I can find a picture of that, I'll insert it right at the beginning so you can see what it started with and then what it ended with. I'm also thinking I'd love to put together a video of just footage of the Wee Village from when it started till now. If I have time to put that together, I'll upload that on my channel as a separate video. Thanks everybody for watching. I enjoy all the comments. So appreciative of all the people who watch the videos. Thank you, and I hope you have a fabulous day. Bye-bye. The Wee Village water feature is finally finished, and I planted all the rest of filled in some plants for this year. So it is almost done, although I found a problem this morning that I'll have to tell you about. I'm trying to beat the sun. The sun is right there, so I'm trying to get this filmed before the sun hits us. Alright, so the water feature starts up there in the corner. It's a waterfall, and comes down. It goes underneath the wall there and down to that. There's a huge 5-gallon bucket buried in the ground right there underneath that blue plate with gravel underneath it. That's the water basin. So there's a timer right here that my husband installed for me. It goes up to 60 minutes. It is attached to a battery that is just inside that wall, which is attached to a small solar panel on the roof that charges the battery. So when I turn on the timer, you can hear the water part starting to come. It comes down the waterfall. Into this, I don't know. My kids call it the abyss. And it makes a funny sucking noise because and then it goes under the wall and up right here. and it's creating a siphon suction, so it makes a funny little noise as it sucks the water out of here. So my kids have named it the Sucking Abyss. And then it continues down here, hits the plate, collects in the 5-gallon bucket underneath. I guess I could show you that. The plate just sits there on top of the bucket. And then there is a water pump in the bottom of the bucket that recirculates the water. It's buried underground. There's a water hose buried underground that goes all the way back up to the top so the water can recirculate. And then the wires for the pump are also buried underneath the stream back up, and they go, you might be able to see them right up there. I'll show you when we get up there. Alright, let's do a quick tour of the village. This is the guy who lives in the desert. These are all rocks that I collected at the Green River Desert down by Moab, Arches National Park. Not in the park, out in the desert where we used to live in Green River, Utah. Because of course you can't take rocks out of a national park. Up on the second level, this is the beach house. My parents have a small piece of property at Bear Lake. It's a natural freshwater lake, but it's such a deep lake. It has these tiny little shells, fish animals that live in the bottom, which break down eventually and make a sand beach, like the ocean beach. So we have a lot of fun there. So these are all rocks I have collected at the beach at Bear Lake. Sorry, probably made you sick there. I had to step up. Here's the waterfall. We created the stream bed with quickcrete concrete. We'd lay it, and then I collected all these flat rocks out of the river at Strawberry River. My parents own another small piece of property at Strawberry River. Cabin burned down that we had there summer before last in the Dollar Ridge Forest Fire, but we still have the property. We can't get in there right now because the road is completely washed out and they haven't fixed it yet. I just stick these flat rocks in there before the concrete cures. This part of the garden gets no sun at all. Past about right where that solar light and little house is, none of this gets sun. Oh, maybe half an hour of sun just as the sun goes down, maybe. So I chose all of these plants at the section of the garden center that's in the shade section, and almost all of these plants are perennials that I plant in here. I do plant a few annuals every year, just a couple, but I have to replace those every year. I like the perennials because then I don't have to replace them, they just keep coming back. Okay, so continuing on, I'm on the wrong side of him. We went to Lake Powell a lot when I was a kid, which is where the red rocks go right down into the reservoir. You can jump off the rocks to swim. So this always reminds me of the Lake Powell guy. This house doesn't have a personality yet. I need to think about that one. Or this one either. Although the cat has fallen off the chair. Poor little kitty. You can tell that this cat used to be yellow. The sun has bleached him out. We call this the haunted house because it's up on a hill and it's dilapidated. It looks abandoned. And then there's two little properties right down here in the front of it as you come down. Sorry, I'm balancing up here on the ledge trying not to fall off. I've named this the Rock Quarry. This is just where I keep all my extra rocks. There's a dahlia planted right here, which has just about been completely eaten up. I need to find out what is eating that. If it's slugs, I need to put out some slug bait. These, and there's one more back there behind the peony. Wooden houses are the people who live up in the forest and don't want to be disturbed. This is the posh house. They actually have a full-time gardener who works at their house. Although it's looking like they, this must be their vacation house because it looks like it hasn't been cleaned up yet for the summer. It's looking a little abandoned. The walkway comes down here to a archway with ivy growing on it. And the path comes over the bridge right here, or you can take the path on the other side. It goes up through this gate to this house that's up here on top. I always think of her as an older lady with lots of cats who likes her yard to be wild. She likes a wild yard. And we're back here to the plate. There's the little teapot house that lives right by this beautiful lake. That is my old water feature that I had 2 years ago before we added this addition onto the house. It's not hooked up to anything. I just thought I'd keep it. It's just a cute little, looks like a little, oh, what is Rock Candy Mountain? I can't think of, that's what it looks like to me. Candy Rock Mountain, that's not what it's called. It's in Utah. I can't remember what it's named. And there's a song. The little beehive house. I can only get to them by going over this bridge and through this little arch. And we have these 3 little houses down here who also don't have a personality yet. I think this lady owns a flower shop because her house looks like a flower. And then we're back to the beginning. So the problem I discovered this morning is that we're having some serious erosion up here on the hill. When the sprinklers come on, or if I water it heavily like I did right after I planted all the new plants, all that dirt runs right down into the abyss. And because this is all clay dirt that we sit on, our house sits on a bed of clay in this area. And when they dug the hole for the new addition and put fill dirt back in here, put in all the clay, it clogged the abyss this morning when I came out here to film. So the homeowners association, all the homeowners had to get together and pull out their heavy equipment to fix that, which meant they had to remove all the rocks and the screen that's down there to keep debris from going in there. Then they had to get out their heavy equipment so they could get the clog fixed, which they did. But that means now they have to get together and do some water management up here, which I think they're going to have to dig a canal with some gravel in the bottom and make that the low spot so that this abyss is now the high spot and the water won't go in there. So the water has somewhere to go. update on the little doors that are by my front door. And a quick update on my front flower bed. It only has 2 houses. This is one. Oh, and I need to weed. Look at that grass. And this is the other one. Which has a path that goes out this way and out here.